Chapter 1. The air was thick with the scent of pine and decay as I trudged through the snow-laden forest, my breath forming clouds in the biting cold. I had come to the wilderness to escape the chaos of civilization, a reprieve from the relentless grind of city life. But the woods had a way of swallowing you whole, and the deeper I ventured, the more I felt their cold grasp tighten around me. My name is Edward, and I had always been fascinated by the myths of the Wendigo, the malevolent spirit that thrived on the suffering of lost souls. I had scoffed at the warnings of the locals, thinking it mere superstition, an old wives' tale designed to scare children. But now, with the trees towering like ancient sentinels and the silence so profound it felt almost alive, I began to wonder. The stories spoke of a creature that roamed these woods, a specter of hunger and despair, a twisted reflection of humanity that had succumbed to its primal instincts. I had come to gather stories, to write about the folklore that surrounded this region, but the further I walked, the more I felt an inexplicable sense of dread. I was not alone. "Keep moving, Edward. Just a few more miles to the cabin," I muttered to myself, shaking off the encroaching darkness that seemed to seep into my bones. I could almost hear the whispers of the forest, taunting me, as if they knew I was a trespasser in their domain. And then, amidst the trees, I spotted a figure, tall, emaciated, its limbs long and spindly, as if they were branches reaching for the sky. My heart raced, pounding against my rib cage as I squinted through the falling snow. "Is someone there?" I called, my voice cracking under the weight of fear. The figure tilted its head, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw the glint of eyes reflecting the light. But then it vanished into the shadows, leaving only an echo of terror in its wake. I quickened my pace, the crunch of snow beneath my boots a harsh reminder of my solitude. I could hear the wind howl, a mournful cry that sent chills down my spine. I reached the cabin just as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world into a twilight gloom. I fumbled with the key, my hands trembling as I pushed the door open, the creaking of the wood sounding like a scream in the stillness. Inside the cabin was a shrine to isolation, the air stale and cold. I lit a fire, its crackling flames providing a flicker of warmth amidst the encroaching darkness. As I settled into the worn armchair, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The walls, adorned with old photographs and hunting trophies, seemed to close in around me, their eyes judging my presence. "Just relax," I told myself, forcing a laugh that echoed hollowly. "It's just a story." But as night fell, the wind picked up, howling like a banshee outside, and I could swear I heard something moving just beyond the cabin's thin walls. I grabbed my notebook, desperate to drown out the growing unease with words. The flickering candlelight danced across the pages, and I began to write, pouring my thoughts onto the paper like a lifeline. But the atmosphere thickened, and soon the scratching at the door began, a low, persistent scraping that sent my heart racing. "It's just the wind," I whispered, but deep down, I knew it was something more. The stories of the Wendigo flooded my mind, tales of insatiable hunger and madness that drove men to the brink of insanity. I was trapped in a nightmare of my own making. Chapter 2. The scratching grew louder, more insistent, and I could feel a cold sweat trickling down my back. I rose, heart pounding like a drum in my ears, and approached the door, my hand trembling on the knob. "Who's there?" I called, forcing my voice to be steady despite the terror clawing at my insides. There was no response, just the eerie silence that enveloped the cabin, wrapping around me like a shroud. With a deep breath, I flung the door open, revealing nothing but the swirling snow and darkness beyond. The forest loomed, an endless expanse of black, and I felt the weight of its shadows pressing against me. I was about to retreat when I noticed tracks in the snow, long, thin imprints that led away from the cabin, disappearing into the depths of the forest. Against my better judgment, I followed the tracks, heart racing, each step sending waves of dread coursing through me. The forest was alive with whispers, rustling branches that sounded like laughter, taunting me as I ventured deeper into the abyss. "This is foolish," I muttered, but the pull of the unknown was too strong. The tracks led me to a clearing, and in the center stood a grotesque figure, its body twisted and gaunt, skin stretched taut over bones that jutted out like jagged stones. Its eyes were hollow voids, and as it turned to face me, I felt an overwhelming sense of despair wash over me, a hunger that gnawed at my insides. "You shouldn't have come here," it rasped, voice like gravel, echoing through the clearing. "Wendigo," I breathed, heart racing as I stumbled backward. The creature smiled, a sickening grin that revealed rows of sharp teeth, glistening with the blood of countless victims. "You came seeking stories, but all you'll find is your end." I turned to run, but the shadows closed in around me, branches clawing at my skin like skeletal fingers. The forest roared to life, the wind howling a symphony of madness as I dashed through the trees, branches snapping underfoot. I could hear it behind me, the creature's breath a chilling whisper that danced along my spine. "Run, little man. It only makes the hunt more fun," it taunted, voice echoing off the trees like a twisted lullaby. I stumbled, falling face first into the snow, gasping for breath as I scrambled to regain my footing. The frost bit into my skin, but I couldn't stop. I had to escape. I raced toward the cabin, heart pounding in my chest, adrenaline driving me forward. But as I neared the door, I skidded to a halt. The creature stood in the doorway, blocking my escape, its eyes glinting with a predatory hunger. "You thought you could leave," it hissed, stepping forward, the shadows swirling around it like dark smoke. "Please," I pleaded, backing away. "I didn't mean any harm. I just wanted to write." Its laughter echoed through the night, a sound that chilled me to the bone. "You should have stayed in the city, Edward. Out here, the stories write themselves in blood." Chapter 3. Panic surged through me as I turned to flee again, but the woods conspired against me, branches snapping like brittle bones, roots grasping at my ankles. I could hear it moving behind me, a relentless predator that reveled in my terror. "You can't run from your own darkness," it shrieked, voice rising in a cacophony of madness. I burst through the underbrush and into the clearing, the moonlight illuminating the snow like a shroud over a corpse. I was lost in a labyrinth of fear, the walls of the forest closing in, suffocating me with despair. I could feel the Wendigo's breath on my neck, cold and rancid, and I knew it would not stop until it had me. Desperation clawed at my heart as I stumbled through the snow, slipping and falling, the cold biting into my flesh. "Somebody help!" I screamed, but the only response was the mocking laughter of the creature echoing through the trees. "No one can save you now, little man. You are mine." In a final act of defiance, I turned to face it, my heart hammering in my chest. "I won't become your story," I shouted, but the words felt hollow, a feeble attempt to reclaim my power. The Wendigo stepped closer, its form shifting and writhing, as if it were made of shadows and nightmares. "You already are," it whispered, and with a swift motion, it lunged forward, claws extending like daggers. I felt the cold steel of its grip around my throat, the sharp pain as it pierced my skin, blood spilling into the snow like crimson ink on a blank page. As I gasped for breath, the world around me darkened, and I could feel the warmth leaving my body. "You will be remembered," it hissed, and in that moment, I knew there would be no escape. No one would ever find me here, lost in the woods, consumed by the very stories I had sought to uncover. And as my vision faded, the last thing I saw was the twisted grin of the Wendigo, its eyes reflecting the darkness that had once been my soul. Devoured, hollow, and lost to the cold embrace of the forest. In the end, I became just another tale, a warning whispered among those brave enough to venture into the woods, forever haunted by the insatiable hunger of the Wendigo.